Snapshots. It's been the experience to have listened to some great motivational speakers and live in a time period whereas a lot more people have grasped the regime of sharing more affirmations and building wellness. Yes, Jack Campbell's published works have come into fruition insofar as the concept of chicken soup for the soul through stories, but also networking. As a student in the media and publishing arts for a long-term investment now, a tenure of 25 plus years, the publishing model of Campbell also was an inspiration professionally, as well as a business model, leaving room to read some of the published variety of his book anthologies, a personal commitment towards continuing my own self-development. I recently shared an anthology with my now adult son as follows. I told him to buy an extra large deck of cards and give the deck a name. Own it. The next step is to take the Joker's wild card and put a post-it note on it that says, "What if?" The next step, I told him to deal himself a hand of cards, also putting post-it notes on those extra large cards with events that are going on in his life or have gone on. The exercise purpose, I give credit to listening to Anthony Robbins' motivational speech, Make a Decision, one of which had a very strong impact in my learning and respect for his long publishing and motivationalist career. I've been listening to Robbins since he published Awaken the Giant Within, his earlier motivational tapes that were released in the 1990s. Robbins and Les Brown became a source to recharge my mental aptitude during my undergraduate studies at Indiana University. A great deal of American pastime is sharing stories, the tradition of storytelling, a long past oral tradition in our families and leadership histories. Stories get us through the hardships, self-doubt, and promote team spirit, morale, as well as document our history, just as previous cultures and civilizations used pictures and hieroglyphs as daily affirmations of their history, triumphs, tragedies, and leadership. The latter, leadership, a part of team dynamics, is not only something that has to be supported, but self-motivated, necessitating those affirmative tools and resources we build our character upon. The deck of cards, dealing a hand for yourself, should go over your goals and what avenues were taken or you want to take, how you will approach those goals or what mistakes you recognize as actions you could have taken to reach your objectives. I recently published some work in the Creative Arts for Poetry Therapy, entitled The Imperfect Perfect. Right, we make mistakes and practice on the field or court, developing our skills. The idea in the deck card exercise helps us to put a visual or tangible concept together in sorting out or developing what's referred to as divergent thinking, or our creative minds in problem solving. I won't necessarily limit this to problem solving because it's an organizational tool as well. Some use other methods like a storyboard or whiteboard, or the basic flowchart in getting their goals sorted out. I use the deck of cards in relation to game theory, not video games, but what I learned along the way referred to as real-life games in our everyday lives. Player strategies I associate with watching people play a card game as the deck of cards are dealt throughout the game, and each player builds his or her hand and playing their cards strategically to meet the best strategy for themselves. Why did I name this publication Snapshots? Let's take that same deck of cards and build a mental portfolio of all those engrams and milestones on those post-it notes to help you achieve a vision of hopefully a proactive or progressive path that you arrived at from recognition and ownership, responsibility of your actions. My daughter loves it when I do my Dr. Phil impersonations. Maybe you can't figure this out alone, and you're going to have to put coaches on those post-it notes, people in areas you need to build additional resources. Maybe you're going to have to lay off some people who are on their daily sabotage campaigns. Just maybe, as Dr. Phil says, you are going to have to do some self-awareness skills and stop blaming others for the cards you dealt yourself. Here's where the Joker's wild card we titled What If comes into play. What if I could have played another card? What if I would have asked someone else, gotten another perspective? utilized a professional or someone who had more information on the subject, someone who could build on my team's direction or objectives. A lot of personal characteristics come into play, of such as interpersonal skills. Introverts or extroverts are the creatures that either propel us or stagnate progress. Coaching is recognized in just about everyone's life events, from pregnancy to motherhood, sports, academia. We call it tutoring, and in the legal profession or other areas of debate, we're back to calling it coaching. Motivational speakers are coaches. In the arts, we also have facilitators, as poetry therapy recognizes talented orators for their insight and purposeful direction in telling stories that get us through by connecting with us with familiarity, that we are not alone in these imperfect, perfect stages of our lives. I'm going to briefly share another piece of literature from Elizabeth Patterson's book, The Phenomenology of African American Women, The Will of Success, whereas I learned some valuable insights and read some of her accounts of other African American women and their stories of their lives. Becoming, the human will inside us, gets us through. We desire that connection within ourselves. As we recognize, we grow through obstacles, stages, and learn from people, good or bad. Becoming is progression, whether the cards dealt were in favor of what we wanted, or cards that caused an action or change in our lives. Change. What motivates change? Back to Anthony Robbins, something he said as well as Les Brown. Are you going to change because now it's hurting bad enough? Or are the results undesirable from actions or habits you keep doing? As your own OD practitioner, organizational development, your job is to recognize where the internal or external malfunction occurs. Now, I joked around with someone at one point regarding that term in circles. Whereas we joked about someone malfunctioning in their approach, or a mistake they made that others recognized to be outside of the ordinary gameplay that should have occurred. Something like, "What's his malfunction?" was the joke. In the business OD practitioner's analysis of organizational efficiency, internal conflict amongst employees or technological inadequacies, there's the search for what's malfunctioning. Change. Change has to occur to get things working again. Change in your attitude or how you perceive and process what actions are necessary. Back to the card deck and recognition of what's not working for you. Another analogy, running into a brick wall, or as Les Brown stated, getting unstuck. Unstuck from the same barriers that are blocking your goals or action by you in moving towards your goals. Or you kept trying to reinvent the wheel when transportation has already met its milestone insofar as the invention. We change the design and add features on the blueprint of the vehicle. So now we have our cards laid out. A blueprint and affirmations like those Jack Canfield's calendars with the daily post-it notes on the dashboard, ready to move forward. Own it. You own and have to make decisions in your life that you can make by yourself, or you're going to have to make wisely with the help of coaches. Decisions that you might have to recognize the big expense in valuable time, which, as we know, the meter is always running. Those snapshots come around when we realize how much of your time has been spent.